I believe the Jacksonville Jaguars have a clear path to do things that are going to make this fan base happy, and I'm going to tell you what they are in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is your team every day here on Locked On Jaguars. We thank you for making us your first listen. I'm Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast that you can find wherever you get your podcast. Whether you watch or listen, we're going to be right there, man, each and every day because it's your team every day. And always thanking you for making us your first listen. Here's the deal. There's a lot going on in training camp. There's a lot to look forward to, right? But I'm going to give you the reasons I believe the Jacksonville Jaguars have a clear path to do the things that are going to get you really, really excited about this year. If this happens, is what I want you to focus on, all right? In the third segment, I'll say if certain things happen, the future will be bright. And then in the middle, I'll tell you if certain things happen, Trevor Lawrence is going to be the most improved player in the National Football League. And I'll start the show at the very top saying, if this happens, the Jaguars win the division. What is going to make them win the division? I'll tell you what it is. If the Jacksonville Jaguars win the games they're supposed to win, and I know that's like really, really vague, right? They should beat the Colts, the quarterbackless Indianapolis Colts, both times. They should beat the Tennessee Titans. They have a young quarterback, but I think a terrible coach both times. That gives them four division wins. And let's just say they split with the Texans. That gives them 5-1 in the division. If the Jacksonville Jaguars go 5-1 in the division, they're going to win the division. Now, I know you could say, well, what if they lose all the other games, right? They win 5 division games, but they only win 2 other games outside of the division. First of all, if they win 5 games in the division, they're going to win more than 2 games outside of the division. I think they can do it because the Houston Texans, I think they could probably even sweep the Houston Texans. The Houston Texans have kryptonite, and it is a kryptonite that the Jacksonville Jaguars have had for years, including last year, that I think they have gotten rid of. And what that is they can't keep their quarterback upright. And that's a problem. Anytime, and I'm going to be real consistent with this because I was consistent with this when the Jaguars had offensive line problems all of these years. You can be stocked and loaded at all of these other positions, but a bad offensive line is going to get you to 10 or 11 wins tops. A really bad offensive line and a better opposition in your division, like the last couple of years, Houston didn't really have any serious threats. I think the Jaguars are okay in 2023, but in 2024, it was a cakewalk for the Texans, right? If the Jacksonville Jaguars are as good as I think they are on defense with their attacking style, they are going to put C.J. Stroud in a bit of a blender. If they can run, if they can stop the run the way I think they're going to be able to stop the run, they will bottle up Joe Mixon and Nick Chubb in that backfield. And now that they have better athletes in their defensive backfield, Nico Collins won't go crazy on them because of the way they're going to play him. Travis Hunter can stop a whole bunch of that foolishness with his radar-like, with his precision-like catch radius and instincts. I have never been a proponent of building your team to just win your division. I have always been a proponent of building the best possible team you can with an eye on making sure that you can beat the teams in your division. If you're in the division with the Kansas City Chiefs like recently or with the New England Patriots historically over the last 2 decades, then those would be one and the same because you'd be trying to beat the best team in your conference to get to the Super Bowl who also happened to be in your division. I never wanted the Jacksonville Jaguars to focus solely on their division, knowing that there's a New England out there or there's a Kansas City team out there or a Buffalo or Baltimore, like right now. I think the Jaguars have to first win the division, get a home playoff game. But the goal is not just to win the division. The goal is to win, let's just say, get to the Super Bowl and have a chance to win that. I'm not high on the AFC South. I'm high on the Jaguars. I'm not high on the AFC South. I was very high on Houston coming into last year. And then when I saw that offensive line and I saw the way they were moving on offense with Bobby Slowick as their offensive coordinator, it shook me up a little bit. And then now they've made some changes, traded away Larry Tunsil, made some additions to that offensive line group in free agency and changed offensive coordinators. But I'm not sold that they can just jump that thing and get that thing going back on track. Because y'all know I'm really against scrapping one person and blaming one person for everything that goes wrong with the team. And y'all know that. I've been consistent about that stuff. Now, I don't think DeMeco Ryans need to be fired. Hell no, he's one of the 10 best coaches, I believe, in the National Football League, or at least in the top dozen or so. But I do believe that when you take the chance to just fix one thing in Houston, when you have identified what that problem is, and you're going to see that's problem solving. That's not solution searching. That's problem solving. We're going to blame Bobby Slowick for everything. The success that they had the year before, I guess that was Bobby Slowick's fault too. It kind of reminds me of getting rid of Mike Caldwell and bringing in the mustache last year on Ryan Nielsen. To me, that's what this feels like. Scapegoat stuff. And I'm not saying Slowick was great, but I'm willing to bet that maybe, just maybe, there was more wrong than just Bobby Slowick. In terms of the Colts, I think the Colts have some pretty nice pieces. They're okay in the trenches on both sides of the ball. They got some good wide receivers. They got a great running back. They just don't have anybody to throw them the ball. They don't have anybody to throw them the ball. And then I think they have a suspect secondary. As far as Tennessee is concerned, they got some really, really interesting players at certain spots. I love the guys on their defensive line. I love Roger McCreary. I like J.C. Latham and Peter Skoronski. That's not going to be enough to beat Jacksonville this year. It's just not. And the other thing is, I think Liam Cohen is going to outcoach and coach circles around most of the people I just mentioned. We'll see about DeMeco Ryans. But if this happens, the Jaguars will win the division. And this in the first segment is win the games you're supposed to first, and then deal with Houston and at least get a split and be 5-1 in the division, and they will be AFC champions. I'll tell you, if this happens, Trevor Lawrence will be the most improved player in the National Football League. What is that? And that is the thing that I'm going to tell you in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. All right, man, it's time to fuel up and turn up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor to your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot, whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with friends. This is the one hole-in-one for your energy game. No doubt about it, man. Look, if anybody in your group just lacks energy and they don't play fast enough when you golf, give them 5-Hour Energy Transfusion and see what happens. Golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors, of course. The grape, ginger, lime flavor gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without chasing the beverage cart. I love that. All right, here you go. If you go to 5hourenergy.com, that is the number 5, hourenergy.com, you can use my promo code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive 20% off your order. The offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. It's 5-Hour Energy. Make sure you tap in. Moving and grooving here on Locked On Jaguars, where it is your team every day. I'm Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast. If this happens, Trevor Lawrence is MVP. There are two things. The offensive line protects Trevor, and he's able to stay upright, combined with the fact that he'll be able to limit turnovers because he'll get those answers pre-snap. that he wants. Receivers are going to be more open. If Trevor Lawrence has less than 12 turnovers, that includes Hail Marys, it includes fumbles, even if it was a bad snap, the Jacksonville Jaguars will be in a good place, good enough to win 11, maybe 12 games, and Trevor Lawrence will be the most improved player and will probably get some consideration for MVP. And when I said that a while back, I said something about Trevor's MVP campaign. I had all these people jumping all over me, right? Saying, man, you gotta drink water before you get Kool-Aid or whatever. You got to start out slow, Wig. You got to walk before you crawl. I know that. That's what I'm doing now. I'm walking. But I'm telling you, if when my walk ends and he has less than a dozen total turnovers and he is healthy and upright for 17 regular season games, I believe it's going to be something very, very good for the Jacksonville Jaguars and their fans. And I think he would, at the very least, get most improved player and get some MVP consideration to the point where he's in the top 5. Why? One reason is because with Trevor, all the expectations have been lowered. They've all been lowered. Everyone has labeled him not what we thought he was. All of the expectations of the prince that was promised and all of that are out of the window. And when that happens, sometimes a guy plays better and he lifts the team up. And what happens is, to justify those wrong opinions, they reverse it and go crazy the other way, saying how great somebody is now. You don't believe me? They did it with Sam Darnold just last year, until the real Sam Darnold showed up at the end of the year with pressure on him and when they needed him. A lot of this stuff isn't physical. Sam Darnold can throw the ball with anybody, and Trevor Lawrence can too. A lot of it is upstairs. It's here. How do you respond to the pressure after playing 4 years behind a bad offensive line? This is why I mentioned them first. Because if that offensive line is anywhere near as good as a top 12 offensive line in the league, I'll say they don't have to be top 7, top 8. If they're anywhere between 8 and 14, that's more than a stalemate. That means they've improved. They've improved mightily. And they will be the best offensive line you have ever seen Trevor Lawrence play behind in the NFL. This is why it's so critical. You notice this is a team game, and I'm not just saying it's one thing Trevor has to do. He has to protect the football. But he also has to stay healthy. And the part about him staying healthy, it ain't just totally on him. It depends on other people. And that's why I'm saying what I'm saying. First, most improved player, then MVP consideration. How can it happen? People are going to be watching Trevor throw the ball this year to some dynamic receivers that can get their hands on the ball and turn it and run after the catch people. Folks are going to show highlights of every time Travis Hunter goes out and catches a pass. Folks are going to show highlights of every time Brian Thomas Jr. takes off on a quick slant and outruns the angles to get long touchdowns. They're going to see highlights of Diami Brown using his speed because everybody's worried about those other two guys. He's going to be flying down in the middle of the field, down the seam or on a 9 route or on a post route. The pressure those receivers are going to put on the DBs to keep their nose out of the backfield will then help the screen game, will then help Brenton Strange on the shallow crosses. At the very least, those plays lead to, if not long plays where they run after the catch, they lead to moving the ball forward past the sticks and continuing to get first downs. Once you do that, you can then start manipulating the defense with the run game, with play action, with rollouts, with fake jet sweeps and reverses. You get them on skates, man. And I think for skill position players, that's when it gets fun. It gets fun for those receivers, quarterbacks, tight ends, and all of those guys, when you got the defense trying to guess. And if they've been on the field for a long time, they're tired. How many times have you seen Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, and Patrick Mahomes kind of get off to a little bit of an iffy start, and then they come out in the second half and they put together these 13, 14 play drives, and they score 3 drives in a row, touchdown, field goal, touchdown. And then you look up and statistically that slow day ends up being a very 21 out of 30 for 268 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no picks. That's how you win games, and that's how guys get into the year awards. So we've talked about the Jaguars winning the division. We've talked about Trevor Lawrence can be the most improved player and maybe get MVP consideration if these certain things happen. I know what everybody's going to say. Slow down, Wig. This is slow. This is the time that we point this stuff out. You can either come back here 4 months and say you were wrong, because these shows don't disappear. Whether you watch or listen, these shows are going to be here. You can either say you were wrong or you were right. 9 times out of 10, y'all going to tell me I'm right, because I'm just flat out telling you what has to happen for those things to occur. And if those things occur, these other things are going to happen. I'll tell you about something else too. And this might be the biggest one, because the first 2 things are all about 2025. The last thing I'm going to talk about is the next decade. I want to talk about something that will sound very familiar to everydayers, because everydayers know one of the things I've always said was the Jags ebb and flow. They go up and down. And when they're down, they stay down for a very long time. And then they come up and it lasts a year and they're gone again. Check out 97, 99. I think it was 2006 or 2008 with David Garrard and them when they went to Pittsburgh. And another thing, 2017. The best seasons they've ever had, they missed the playoffs the very next year. So what am I talking about? If this happens, the future will be bright. I'm going to tell you right now, if the Jacksonville Jaguars play with the type of consistency, win or lose, and they compete every game, and they can get to 11 wins, it won't seem like an anomaly. It won't seem like just another year where they had an okay year. It will sit in your consciousness as, okay, we've arrived. What have you arrived to? I'll tell you exactly what you arrived to in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. All right, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Monarch Money. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Monarch Money. That's right, man. I'm telling you, if you have ever managed your money and it's been difficult and you wanted to make it easier, Monarch Money is right there and it can happen. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch Money puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center, and you can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. I found out, man, I was paying for one prescription 3 times through different streaming services. Monarch Money took care of that, and it can do the same thing for you. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money and use the code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. All right, moving and grooving here on Locked On NFL and Locked On Jaguars, where it's your team every day. We thank you again for making us your first listen. My everydayers are the truth. If you're new here, I hope you enjoy the show. All right, here's the big one. If this happens, the future will be bright for Jacksonville. They need a lot of role players to step up. They need the offensive linemen to look very, very competent, the young guys. And they'll know that those are the people that they have. The old staff just blamed it all on availability. Like, we haven't seen these guys. Just because you haven't seen them doesn't mean that when they show you their best combination, that's going to be any good. Because when they did get them all back together, they weren't good. So absence doesn't mean, or injuries doesn't mean like when they're healthy, they're going to be good. I mentioned the offensive line in the first segment because that's been the biggest problem area. I think once the Jacksonville Jaguars get to a point where they can consistently make you feel like they can consistently win games, you'll feel a lot better. Too much ebb and flow. 97, made it to the AFC Championship game. Didn't make the playoffs. 99, AFC Championship game. Didn't make the playoffs. Made the divisional under Jack Del Rio at some point. I think it was 06 or 08. Fell back down again. 2017, championship game. Winning the game in the fourth quarter. 2018, don't make the playoffs. That's the ebb and flow. Anybody that understands, if you're from Jacksonville, we got this beach. If you're not, listen to me. You got the beach where you actually drive up on the beach. It's called Huguenot Park. Huguenot Park in the morning, low tide. You're good. Hard dirt. High tide, usually about 10 or 11 o'clock, here comes the water. It chases you to those dunes. The dunes are dry. 3 hours later, when the tide goes back out, sometimes you try to move your car and you get stuck in that sand. You don't have to do that if you're sound and if you're a good enough football team. You can park in one place for about a decade, like Baltimore, Philly, and Buffalo. I didn't mention Kansas City because they've been winning. But most of the teams, the three teams I just mentioned, they are always relevant. They are always hanging around. They are always close enough to the point where you believe they have a shot each and every year. Philly personifies that. Then you got other teams like the Dallas Cowboys. Their fans make you feel like they're always close, but they're not. They're not close. Green Bay always kind of seems like they're relevant. You have to put yourself in a position that all of the things that are required, that the part about luck is when opportunity meets preparation. If you don't have the opportunity to get lucky, it ain't going to matter. If you prepare correctly and you're at that intersection of luck and opportunity, anything can happen. That's how the New England Patriots beat the greatest show on turf, and everybody says it was an upset. No, it wasn't an upset. You know what happened? They beat them, and it was the first of 6 championships. It was the beginning of a dynasty, but it was an upset that day. That's how this has to go for the Jaguars, because nobody expects them to do anything. Nobody. And by the time you realize that little Johnny done had taekwondo lessons and you didn't know it, he's whooping you upside your head and it's too late. And that's what the Jaguars have to do. And once they can get to that point where they're consistently challenging for a championship, it will allow the fans to rest easy and not be so pessimistic about the season. The other thing that'll happen, they'll actually put winning in their DNA. And that prevents you from falling backwards so much. Point at my veins like I'm doing something else. I don't stick needles in my arms, but I'm just telling you. Once it is incorporated into the fiber, fabric, and ecosystem of an organization, it feels like they always believe that they can win. And the fans won't believe that they can win until the team believes in themselves. They can say that they believe in themselves, but there's nothing like having demonstrated performance of consistent play week in and week out, regardless whether they win or not. There are just some things that they are going to do correctly each and every week, like a computer program. When they get to that point, that's when I think it'll make the fans happy. Now, of course, the fans would be really ecstatic if they won a Super Bowl this year. Of course they would. And that's the easiest way to try to make sure that this thing I'm talking about works. But what I'm talking about actually works even if they don't win a Super Bowl this year. If the young players step up, if the offensive line steps up, if there's a consistent effort week after week after week, and the Jaguars look like a competent, smart football team. And then they'll have everybody under contract, right? And when everybody's under contract, it's just more of it. It's kind of where the Rams are too. You know, that's a little bit different because the Rams won the Super Bowl and then totally broke their whole thing down. And now they got it right back really, really fast. That is the definition of a team that personifies the consistency that I'm talking about, that you have to display, know that it's what it is. It has to be a part of you like every day. If it becomes the baseline, the minimum, the floor, the standard is that you're going to come out and be a hard out for the best teams in the league, but you're going to beat anybody that is equal to you or below you, because that's what good teams do. These fans want a championship, but more than that, and it's hard to say more than that because it's hard to win a Super Bowl. They want the feeling that they're going to be in position to win each and every year. They want to believe that they are one of the 12 best teams in the league, because once you're one of those 12 best teams in the league, anything can happen. I saw Green Bay win a Super Bowl a year they went 10-6. The Patriot team that beat the greatest show on turf, I just mentioned that. And I'm sorry if I'm dating myself, and that was 29 years ago. But I'm telling you, that's what it's like. That is what they are looking for. That is what we all want. How do I know that? Because college football. Ohio State hadn't won a championship since Urban Meyer was their coach. But every year they're right there knocking on the door, and then bang, they kicked it in last year when they had these great players on their team, all those draft picks. And I know college and NFL is different, but you first have to establish, and this is what people don't understand about the word culture because it's so overused. Culture is just a mindset, man. It's whatever your ecosystem is. You don't have to remember your culture, and I always use this as an example. You don't walk out of the door and say, oh, man, I got to turn around. Turn the Uber around. I got to go home and get my culture. I left it. It's just who you are. And that's why it's important that they're drafting the type of people that they are and want those people to be nothing more than just who they are, because they're drafting guys with high football character, their own drive. In the dog world, they call it prey drive. It's like all you got to, even if they don't feel like it, you tease them with something, they're going to come get it because that's what they are. All on the same page, all with the same determination, all with the same goals, unselfish, understanding who you are and what you're supposed to do in the system. This is how you get to the point where you're consistently in that room when they start talking about contenders. And then that's when the magic happens. That's when Travis Hunter and Brian Thomas and Trayvon Walker and Trevor Lawrence and ETN and all of the players that we all think have a chance to be really, really good, and Brian Thomas Jr., all of that. This is when you tell those 5 or 6 guys, okay, show me your best combination. That's what it is. And anybody that thinks the Jags have to go through every team in the AFC West and Buffalo and the Bengals and the Broncos, no, they don't. They got to go through maybe 2 of them to get to where they're going. Those other teams all got to play each other. I remember when Floyd Mayweather was fighting, they wanted to line up all 6 contenders and make him knock all of them out. I said, why don't you make them people fight each other first? He don't have to beat them all, does he? And that's like, just what I'm telling you about football. They don't have to beat them all. They just got to beat whoever they put in front of them that day. And they got to do it twice in a row if they win the division, and then they'll be in the Super Bowl, and then we'll see what happens. If those things happen, the objectives that I ironed out will follow right behind it. Make sure you guys check out Locked On Bets, man. I want to thank you for making Locked On Jaguars your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On Bets. Betting experts Lee Sterling and Kevin Rogers have daily NFL locks and can't miss football futures. Find Locked On Bets on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. And we will see you tomorrow as we continue to get closer and closer to that first preseason game here in Jacksonville. If anything happens, you know you can find me here on Locked On Jaguars, and I'll lay it out for you. Until then, y'all take care.